Northern Lights 2016 is a DOE FRMAC exercise hosted by the state of Minnesota. What follows is a discussion of the use of RadResponder throughout Northern Lights.
So, Brennen, I walked around a lot and I saw a lot of use of RadResponder. What led to the use of RadResponder in the exercise itself?
Well, I think we might want to back that question up a little bit.
Right.
When RadResponder was first released, when we first started discovering what it was, I think it was pretty evident that it would be a great tool for a common operating picture. It would kind of bring a lot of the processes that we tried to do already in the 21st century. Mm-hmm. But there was some resistance. Anytime you're introducing another tool, especially something that requires a battery that everyone might not have, people are resistant. But what happened, I think, over a period of maybe a year and a half, is that the fire services we work with our field monitoring teams, they started using more apps and more technology in part of their normal job and their normal response. So we've had a lot of real success riding on sort of the wave of other electronics use and other applications that are used. And I think it's very natural, I think, to the team that uses it. I would have to say that they adopted it pretty enthusiastically. I think one of the problems, though, is how do you set it up for a program? Like, it's easy to use it, put in a survey, put in a sample, but how do you think about applying it program-wide?
So how do you do that?
Well, I think you got to think about who is going to be using it. I think in any response, it gets political and it gets to the policy level pretty quickly. But you have the people who are taking samples, the field teams, you have the people who are assessing the data, and you have the lab. Mm-hmm. And so I think our challenge, and what we're looking at going forward and why we used it during this exercise, is we're trying to build towards bringing those three groups together. We feel pretty confident with our ability to use it for our field monitoring teams, but what we haven't quite developed a strong proof of concept is how does assessment then use this data, and how do they use that data to coordinate issues with the lab. So that's really, I think, our next steps. I think that's our challenge right now, is how do we use this as a tool to increase coordination between these three aspects of any response.
Well, and watching the assessment during the exercise actually was super exciting. I had some awesome...
I'm glad you agree.
I had some amazing moments, actually, as a data assessor, and seeing that evolution of looking at data for the first time ever. I mean, so it's pretty amazing. And watching the conversations that were happening of actually digging into lab sample data that was consistent with the FRMAC sample data, and then asking those questions about what that meant and whether it should be approved or rejected. And it seemed like there was some struggle, which is real on the FRMAC end when they do it as well. How did you feel about that?
Well, I thought that was a realistic test. I think when we got survey results, it was very easy to say, okay, we have some criteria, some logical criteria which we could accept or reject it. When we got into samples, we realized that requires a level of coordination with the lab. And I think when you're used to playing an exercise that ends after 3 hours and covers one day, or covers 2 days, that's kind of academic. But when you start looking 3 weeks down the road, and what is the assessment role in terms of the continuing field monitoring and sampling, and how does that lab role play into it? Labs don't just analyze data. They need to know what they're looking for, what question they're trying to answer, what are the quality objectives, and a number of those things and the role assessment plays in that became a lot clearer during this exercise.
So how did the people that participated in using RadResponder feel about it? Did they enjoy that opportunity?
I think they did. I think, it's interesting when you can dig deeper. I think that was probably the truth of the Northern Lights exercise, is it gave us a deep dig into a lot of issues, and it gave us a deep dig in trying to assess data and see how data and sampling data in particular was used to make decisions. To answer some fairly complex questions and the usefulness of that. So, it was a great test for it. I'm not saying we're all the way there yet. I think there's a lot of things still to test and practice and prove and develop. But I think it was a great, not just a first step, but first several steps towards addressing that assessment question.
So what do you think you'll do next with what you learned from the exercise?
Well, I think we're going to try to continue to develop assessment-centric training. I think we do ongoing training with our field monitoring teams. I think they take samples and they use it as part of every training, and I think they feel very comfortable with it. But I'm not sure assessment quite has their hand on, not only how do they integrate with FRMAC, but how do we integrate with this data and their data.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of great questions that were raised that we have to answer now. So.
Thank you for watching. You'll find a document library and instructional videos by clicking the Resources drop-down on our website. Follow us on social media for news and updates about the RadResponder network.